Welcome to the United States of America podcast. I'm your host, Niti, and we are broadcasting live from the Food Church here in North Carolina. If you've missed past episodes, please be sure to take the time to watch the first episode and watch the rest like a documentary. We are people at peace, and we have declared peace to all nations around the world. This is not a marketing or a promotional channel, and we are shining a light on knowledge that is being hidden from you. We are sharing the truth about your birthright and your inheritance. We have moderators who are assisting in the comment section. Be kind and self-govern. If you have questions, please put them in all caps and only enter them once per show. I am joined on air with Greg Clarkson, regenerative farmer and ASN on Kansas. And now I'm proud to introduce you to Justice Anna Maria, who is joining us live from Alaska today. Welcome, everybody.
Hello.
Oh, man.
I'm wearing my shake and bake here, my puffer coat.
You guys, I mean, okay, so what's going on, Anna? There's so much happening. The corporatocracy is collapsing as fast as possible. And it is, it's really going to help people see exactly how much control these people had over us and how much power they've been holding over us. Because, as you've said before, from the beginning, until we have financial sovereignty, we can't be fully sovereign. And everyone is now, anybody who was really confused about this before, the people that are like, oh, y'all are just some tinfoil hat wearing, conspiracy theorists or whatever, they can see the audits. They can see the things that they think they want to blame Trump or whomever about, but they must, the problem is that everyone can't comprehend that this is literally just business. Everything's about business. Everything's always been about banking. And it's the bankers that are the bad guys in this scenario. And so Anna, Greg, and I wanted to bring on stage what's happening with the boots on the ground, because you've been giving us updates from the, your global perspective. And with the boots on the ground right now, my business is directly being affected, as are many other businesses directly being affected. And it's fascinating. Like anybody who has a merchant account and they're accepting credit cards, and I'm not talking about people who are doing PayPal or some of these things. There's not as it might not be as visible to them, but any of us who have like different kinds of merchant accounts where we're actually able to decide, do we want to work with MasterCard brand, Visa brand, Amex brand? We get to choose which cards we will take and which ones we don't. I don't think people who don't own businesses, they may not realize that business owners get to choose. The vendors get to choose how they want to receive payment, what payments they will accept. Will they accept checks? Will they accept cash? And so currently, I know for us anyway, MasterCard brand has decided they don't want to work and play with certain credit card processors. So it might not be your processor. It might be a different processor. And in which case, this is the way it looks, Anna, okay? This is fraud on its face for everybody to comprehend in ways that is actually holding the business, the small businessman, hostage with a boot on their neck from one side, a gun at their heart, and a knife at their throat. And I'll tell you how it works, okay? So someone makes a purchase with their MasterCard, for example, and they have paid and they have gone away with an asset, like a hard asset. Let's call it bacon or beef or whatever, okay?
Bacon.
They go home with the bacon. Okay, they go home with the bacon. We aren't getting paid because there are three guys in the middle who are saying that they're not, they're for whatever reason, and they play this the same way that the Pope and the King are throwing a bag back and forth, like they've stolen the bag of money and they're throwing the bag back and forth, like, you take it and give us our cut. we'll take it and give you your cut. Okay. So what they've done is they've taken the money. Okay. And the three of them are deciding who's, they're saying to me, I'm out of compliance. Compliance of what? My deal is with that guy who took the bacon. Okay. And then you forced yourself into between me and that guy. And now the three of you guys are throwing the money around. And you're telling me I'm out of compliance when really y'all are in compliance, not in compliance with each other or whatever, because that's the excuse to not release the funds. Okay. So it's for them to hold the bag, and they don't give it back to that guy, and they don't give it back to us either.
It's called night windowing. And what they do is they hold on to your funds and make like a day trade, an hour by hour day trade. I should call it an hour trade. And every hour that they keep your funds, not just your funds, but collectively funds throughout the entire system, they make money by trading on that. And it's illegal as hell, but they're getting away with it. And the place to complain is your state banking commission.
Okay. This is a big problem, and it's been almost 30 days. Almost 30 days. So in my scenario, I have relationships with everybody who I'm dealing with. Okay. I can call them and just say, hey, this is what these people are doing. This is why we're not going to use their system anymore. And we're going to be able to pivot. And yes, there's a loss. There is a tremendous loss that we're going to have to work on. Okay. But whatever that loss is, while we're working on that, we're not participating anymore. And so we're going to remove ourselves from that scenario. But a lot of bigger places are not going to be the same. But what about when some Joe on the ground is just literally trying to pay their power bill or something? Now they can't do that because the vendor only wants it one way, and the poor guy, he just needs the power on. He can maybe only pay it the whatever kind of way. This is about to be a really big calamity.
Well, I can tell you that Visa and MasterCard have both been involved in money laundering, and both are in the process of being shut down because of it. So then it's being kind of farmed out to all these subsidiary smaller processors, and they're very confused. And some of them have been involved in money laundering and are getting shut down. It makes for a great deal of chaos. And if you've been watching the financial news, you've heard about debanking, where just a bank just decides arbitrarily that they're going to shut your account and take your funds. And they do. They just take whatever's in your account. They won't give it back to you. They won't explain why. They'll just arbitrarily shut down your account. And they're doing this to big business owners as well as little people. Yeah. So debanking, it should be illegal as hell, but they're getting away with it because what's in your account are FRNs. And as you've already seen from the case law that I've published for you, FRNs are worthless, literally, and they can't be brought to court for stealing FRNs because FRNs have no literal value.
And so that's what they've done. They've emptied our business account.
Oh, they debanked you?
They debanked me. I have been literally in meetings all day. That's why I'm kind of running late today. Anna was always on. She was early, y'all, and I was late because we have to have a solution. And at least say again.
Bank regulators, banking commission.
Okay. State banking commission.
State of state.
State of state.
In your state, they might have already converted over to the state trust. They'll still have banking regulators. And you'll still be able to complain. Now, smaller things like PayPal and Cash App have not been affected yet, but they probably will be investigated. And the good news, kids, is that you have your own banking system. And this week we did the second beta test. Okay, so envision this: you've got two systems. You got the asset-backed system, and you have the credit system over here, the debit credit system. So about 3 weeks ago, we tested the connection between the two, going from A to B. And now this week, they're testing the beta test from B to A and working out all those bugs. Um, they will be able to do all these transactions in any currency in either system using QRC codes.
You're just right. I mean, Anna, the timing. But this is this is how great God is. God is so great that everything happens on time and in time. And look at the gift that you are to us all.
Look at all the middlemen out of the picture too. That's the great thing about it.
Yeah, well, at the same time that I was getting poked and prodded, Hunter Aki was getting poked and prodded, and so we have. Yep, Bob, you've been debanked. But anyway, we're going to bypass all of this because guess what? We have our own bank and it's outside their system and it doesn't operate under their law. It all operates under American Admiralty and American Maritime and American land law. So they're just sort of shit out of luck.
And Gregory, I need you to help us in this conversation today. And Anna, anything that you can share, because I was explaining to the firms, I said, you guys know what I've been doing. You know that I haven't been making a big deal about it. You know that I wasn't really going to press the issue with you until we could show the money. And we had the meeting. I showed them what was happening here. They're doing an audit of their own accounts. Okay. I showed them the St. Crown, press release. I told them about what you're doing. I'm like, listen, you guys have been hemming and hawing about reading about this because you are so busy with your hands in the soil. And, you can't, I need you to take action today because I'm trying to keep the rug from being pulled out from under you. You need to go ahead and declare and come home and have this solution. Otherwise, forever hold your peace. Like, don't act like I haven't tried to explain this a million times. I said, and we're going to be the ones who have to help hold our community together because everybody's asleep and they're going to be freaking out. And we're the only ones who are going to be able to actually have any way to support them and carry that and make this smoother than it otherwise would be. And we would be able to, manage, at least on a community level. That's what we need. We need to be able to get this going, and we need all the rest of the farmers on board. So what's the message, you guys?
Well, the good news is you have your own bank system. The good news is it's fully automated and it works globally so that you can continue to do business with anyone in any country. The good news is that it's unhackable. It is very simple. It's just direct transfer your account to their account or their account to your account. There's no middleman. You don't have to worry about credit card processors. You don't have any of that. So between being unhackable and being direct and simple, you couldn't ask for a better system in terms of just getting the job done, right? There's no middleman. So all you need is your QRC code for your business and a QRC code for yourself, so you have separate accounts. One for Niti Bali's expenses and one for Niti's business expenses, okay? And then you just have this wonderful facility of being able to go, here are the two QRC codes. Here's your customer's QRC code. Here's your business's QRC code. They come together for an instant, and the transfer's done instantly, just that fast. No waiting for it to process. No waiting for a middleman processor to take his 4% or whatever cut. No waiting for the end of the month report on your activity. No big brother intervening and saying, oh, well, we don't know so-and-so, and all that crap is gone. It's just gone. It does not exist. The 42 million banking regulations and the various commissions and people sitting as bank regulators and oversight and all that, they're gone. The banks themselves are gone. You no longer have these huge federal banks that have been bankrupt since the 30s, borrowing your assets and defrauding you by describing it as a house loan when it's your house that they're using as the collateral. All this bullshit is going. You're going to see the big banks are going to they're going to have to completely restructure and start operating under different law and under different premises if they're going to operate at all. And many of them are just simply folding. They're just going down. We have a list of 66 banks that are they will not recover. By the time this is done and ended, I expect all the central banks to fall or be completely restructured in a different jurisdiction and operating under different law. Okay. I expect that the system that we have will take over, and that it's much more sensible, much cleaner, much simpler. It's easier to run. It's easier to track. It's just everything about it is much, much better than any kind of banking system we have ever had, and much cleaner than any banking system we've ever had. And again, as Niti explained, the vendor gets to choose how the vendor wants to be paid. So if the vendor wants to be paid in gold or silver instead of a promissory note or whatever, bond, etc., they can just decide, gee, I want to sell my milk and hay for silver. I want to sell my cheese and wool for gold, and it's the vendor's choice. So realistically, everybody in this world has enough in terms of commodity assets, and everybody in this world has more than enough of prepaid credit. And so there's really no excuse that we can't all be trading freely among each other without all of this middleman crap. And so this is the system that we're bringing back to the table and to the world for the use of living people, which is, we've been living in a system that only served corporations, and living people have been misrepresented as corporations, and we've been subjected to laws that were intended for corporations. That makes no sense at all. It's not true. It's bull. And it's self-interested bull on the part of those that were enforcing this and defrauding us and denigrating us as corporations. Because if you think about it, there is a demarcation between the living man or woman, right, and a thing, a made-up legal fiction entity. And when they reduce you to the level of a thing, then they have an ability to move you around like a chess piece and dictate to you and regulate you and put you through all sorts of stuff that you're not naturally heir to. So this has been a means of coercion and racketeering and a means to denigrate and defraud people of their actual assets and their actual status. And all of this is being torn apart at a root level. Now, one of the things that is coming to the fore now is that it turns out that the Roman Catholic Church, once we went to Rome and started banging our dish on the table about all of this, certain of the people in charge of the Roman Catholic Church actually listened to us, realized what was going on, and started taking action against it, doing what they could do to correct the situation. And so what they did is, now think about this. I've discussed this before. You've got international jurisdiction in two kinds, right? International jurisdiction applies to land and sea. And what's above both land and sea? The air. Who controls the air? The church. Okay? So the church, looking at what it could do, created what's known as the divine province, which is air jurisdiction, right? And they set up a system where you could enter the divine province as long as you were willing to live peaceably with your fellow man. You could enter the divine province and retain your beneficial interest on the land. Okay? So it was their answer that everybody could enter the divine province. Everybody who was willing to live at peace with their fellow man could enter the divine province and have all of their rights and property and everything secured in the land jurisdiction too. That was their answer. And they started making this available, I think, in 2006, 2008, somewhere in there. Pope Benedict XVI did this. And in order to effectuate it, he set up a new level of postmaster so that regional postmasters were assigned all over the world. And the postmaster he assigned for our region, which was North America, with Canada, the United States, and Mexico, was a man named James Thomas McBride. And so he basically opened up the divine province for anyone who was willing to live at peace with their fellow man. They could enter the divine province and retain their land jurisdiction interest. Okay? And so I think it was about 900 people realized that this was a good thing and that it was a corrective action from the church. And so we then had the conversations with James Thomas. He was also given a precious artifact, the seal of St. Peter. And the seal of St. Peter is used to, quote unquote, unlock the storehouses of the Lord. So this is a seal, a bank seal, that is to be used to unlock the wealth that was set aside in all of those gold-backed birth certificate bonds and other investments that were made on behalf of the individuals by the church. And the FBI raided James Thomas's house and arrested him and stole the seal. But they did not get his commission paperwork, and they did not get the letters patent, and they did not get the other documents that prove his commission. And so now we're going back to Kash Patel's FBI and making the demand on the behalf of his estate and on behalf of the the church to receive back the church's property, which he was basically given as an officer of the church. And this is a big deal because they've been saying that there's no proof that Benedict XVI ever did any of this, and of course there is proof. And the FBI, once again, is in the crosshairs for illegal actions and unlawful actions that they have taken under misdirection and misadministration by the politicians that are grossly guilty of criminality. In any event, I wanted you to know that the church did make a good faith effort to correct and to protect. And this was derailed by the FBI, which is now in the crosshairs. And we will be pursuing this with the Trump administration and with Kash Patel. And we will be hopefully securing the seal of St. Peter and securing the validity, if you will, of the divine province as a refuge for people. Of course, we are peaceable and law-abiding, and it isn't that far of a stretch to go from our land jurisdiction to their air jurisdiction. So long as we are so long as we are protecting each other and protecting the earth, there's no reason why we can't go freely between air and land. Okay? And there's really no reason why you can't maintain a relationship with the air jurisdiction from the land and operate under land law. But here in America, there's additionally the fact that we are a sovereign entity. Our individual states are all sovereign, and acting collectively, they're sovereign. And as a result, we have our own maritime law, we have our own admiralty law, and so we can operate under our own complete suite of laws. We can cover all the law jurisdictions of land, air, and water with our own American law, and we don't need to reference anything in the British system whatsoever. And as they have defaulted on their treaty with us concerning the trustee relationship of the British monarch on the high seas and navigable inland waterways, we can bring that forward to international courts, and we can, basically accuse them of crime and admiralty and breach of trust, which has already been decided, as you know, if you've read Disclosure 101 that was published and is still available from Amazon. You'll have a complete record of how this was processed and how we served due process on the perpetrators for 7 years. And so they really don't have a leg to stand on. They had the opportunity to correct, and they didn't. And that resulted in April of 2014 a finding of our final judgment and civil orders, which apply to the municipal government and to the estates thereof. So we really, we went full bore. We took them all to the mat. We gave due process to the municipal corporation. We gave due process to the territorial corporation. We served the notices. We did an extensive notification campaign that went from the principals, the Lord Mayor of London, the Queen, and the Pope, all the way down to local county assessors and people of that sort that were small cogs in the big wheel, but nonetheless, they received notification and they received an explanation of why what they were doing was criminal and why they should stop. Now, what's amazing to me is that so many of them didn't stop. So many of them didn't fully understand or fully recognize that truth is the ultimate authority. They somehow missed that point in school. And it's something that we need to be teaching our children and our population at large, that the truth and the fact is that's all that matters. That's the controlling jurisdiction. And so, but a great many people seem to think that legal structure is more important than lawful structure, simply because they've been working in the legal structure. And that is not correct. What matters is what is. And all of these airy-fairy legal fiction entities are that. They are nothing but legal fiction, airy-fairy entities. They do not have any substance. And that's why the substantive issues overstand all the legal in the world. It's sort of like, if you think about the number line, you have -1, you have 0, and you have +1. +1 is the only thing that has substance. 0 doesn't count. 0 is a nullity, right? And -1 doesn't exist. It's a concept. Okay? And so the only thing that counts is the substantive side of the equation. In law, in math, in all things real, actual, factual, the substantive side is what counts. And the fact that there was nobody representing the substantive side for a long while because of the fraud and the deceit that was involved meant that entire generations of people grew up thinking that the lie counted more than the truth. And we have a lot of makeup to do to not only convince them that the lie doesn't work, but also to enforce. For a long time, those of you who are involved and have read the articles and know the information will realize that the only people who had the ability to enforce the constitutions on the subcontractors were those who were operating as state citizens. And they will understand also the logic of this. Now, our state citizens are operating in what? International jurisdiction. Our state citizens are also entirely devoted to their state, just as someone might be totally devoted to their country. Our state citizens are devoted to their state of the union and to the people of their state to make sure that their state is properly represented and cared for and has what it needs in the world. Okay, so our state citizens are the capital P people in we the people. And oftentimes when people are reading the preambles to the constitutions and other documents and they see that capital P jutting up out of nowhere, they try to gloss it over as if it were a small p. But no, it's a capital P for a reason. And the reason is the same reason that the words state citizen are upper lower case. It's because it's an international jurisdiction. And so when you see we the people, it is specifically talking about our state citizens who adopted the constitutions, who allowed these federal subcontractors to provide these services under delegation of powers. that were delegated by who? Well, by the state citizens who adopted the constitutions. Okay. And so our state citizens are the only ones who are party to the constitutions, and they're the only ones who can enforce the contracts. And what has happened is that the federal bureaucracy has suddenly woken up and gone, oh my God, they're back. The state citizens and the state assemblies giving rise to the state citizens are back, and they're enforcing against us. And so there's a lot of ignorant use and abuse of the phrase, we the people. But we actually know what it means and where it comes from. And we actually know who the people being referenced are. We know their authority. We know why they had the authority to adopt the constitutions and to make these agreements with these service vendors. And we know that they have the absolute right and power and authority to enforce those contracts. Also have the right and authority to declare them null and void for lack of performance, for example. So our state citizens have a great deal of power when it comes to enforcing the constitutions. And now that our state assemblies are back in session and our state citizens are here, there is no excuse for any federal subcontractor not to honor their obligations under their contract. And that means that Donald Trump and all the rest of these people that are occupying federal offices are now faced with the necessity of operating within the limitations of the Constitution.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great story. You know, I
Yeah.
was thinking, can you hear me okay? Yep, nope. Can you unmute me?
You're not muted.
Okay,
Am
I
I
can
muted?
hear you. I can hear you. It's just low. It might be my settings.
Oh, okay. I'm on
Oh,
Niti.
I was like, I can hear you.
Okay, all right. So,
I'm turning down my settings.
you know, as you were going through that, Anna, that was really, really good. And it kind of brought me back to the question of what do we tell these people? And then you were talking about the farmers, Niti. And I think farmers is a good place to start. And, you know, what I would say is, first and foremost, don't you want to stand on your land and soil as a free man? Right there, that ought to be all you need to tell them. Forget the banks, forget all the other stuff. That's number one.
Right.
But then you look at it and say, stand on your land and soil as a free man. Forget the 80 million pages of policy and statutes and all that crap that's been holding all of us back for so long. Forget this thing called the IRS and all the theft that's gone on there. And then start with zero. If in a free trade banking system like you just described, Anna, man, who could ask for anything better? But yet you throw on top of it, hey, we're going to get some prepaid credit. And, you know,
icing on the cake.
Icing on the cake. That's the last most important thing.
Right.
In my mind, the most important thing is to be free.
And I mean, Greg and I were talking about this and just what the situation is with the collapse. And the good news for us was good. Like they are collapsing. Okay.
Yeah.
And the best news about the bank for us is not the credit. I mean, the credit's great, but is more so that we can control our business.
The freedom.
Yeah. Right. And you've got both sides. You've got asset backed and you've got prepaid credit.
Yeah.
Right.
So and it's coming to fruition. It's happening now in the midst of the collapse so that you'll have a safety net.
Yeah.
Well, this is the funny part, Anna. So, Greg, you've talked a lot about you put your FRNs into the vault, you put them in, and then they turn into AFDs. This whole conversation is going on in the chat about, you know, well, how do you get in there? And then people are like, you're not going to be able to use your money if you ever put it in there. Um, okay, you won't be able to get the FRNs back out, but you don't want them back out. What you want is the gold. If you're going to put in a useless piece of paper and
Yeah.
in exchange for that, you're going to get 1/10 ounce of gold. I mean, excuse me, there
Not
is
only
nothing
that,
to
useless digits that can be taken away from you in a snap of a finger with this debanking thing. Somebody
right.
popped up and said they had been. So why would you
Yeah,
not? I mean, you can't. There, you got to have some, some strategy to it, of course. The
sure.
system
Yes.
isn't going to flip over overnight, so we all have to get by, while it's transitioning. But if you have some extra digits in your bank account, why not?
Or
It's a
if you have savings. Look, when oh, sorry, Anna.
it's a 300% return.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's a no-brainer. Also, look, people all day long will put money into the stock market like it's just nothing, okay? Like people do this, which is a joke. That's literally gambling instead of
Well,
this. And they're not
yeah.
touching that money either. You're not going to be getting that money back. Look.
No, the fall has started. We've seen it this past, 7 or 8 days of trading. The fall has started, and it's going to go exponential.
Yeah.
And I think it goes back to the whole thing, Anna. You talked about the IRS money, the tax money being used as kind of a relief valve.
Right.
And I think it was holding markets up or pushing markets up as well.
Yes.
Well, if that money goes away, this thing's going to deflate really, really fast.
Real fast.
Well, all the stocks on the stock market are overvalued because the companies listed on the stock market have been self-investing.
Yeah.
They've been buying back their own stock.
Yeah.
It gives the idea that there's action that isn't there and demand that isn't there. Okay, so there's been a deceptive practice going on within the stock market itself to give the impression of activity and value that isn't there.
Yeah. But you talk about a 1 to 300 because gold's roughly just under $3,000 an ounce.
Right.
So 1 to 300 trade on the safety vault exchange. But not only that, I'll go back to the point of just start me at a 1-to-1 even with no overhead of taxation, no overhead of the policies and the statutes and all of the stuff that small business owners face. If you take all of that away, yeah, they can focus on running their business. Forget the 300-to-1 exchange. I'm good with the 1-to-1 exchange with all that stripped away. Now you throw in 300-to-1, and it just doesn't get any better.
Well, right, and I think it's one way that people can get restitution for the harm they've suffered for the past 112 years.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
all the way back to the Civil War, they've suffered harm. But
I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining. Don't get me wrong. I love it. I just don't want people to focus on just that. There's so much more that comes along with this freedoms that are in place now. And all the stuff getting cleared away and out of our paths. There'll be a transition time, and there'll be some difficulties. But I don't think it'll take that long. I really don't. I think economies transition faster than what people realize.
Right.
Well,
here's the thought. I've already proven to you with those court cases that are cited on my website and then TASA that FRNs are literally worthless. People can't even be charged for stealing them. Okay. So they're literally worthless. They are not negotiable instruments. They are not negotiable at all, period. They do not have a valid signature. They do not have a valid date of repayment, and they don't state any kind of, what species money or what will be used to repay this debt. Instead, you're told it's the good faith and credit of Congress. Well, um, which Congress? Who are these
Yeah.
people really? You know, so everybody's putting their faith in this Federal Reserve note, when in fact the Federal Reserve has been acting in a deceptive and fraudulent way, and have been using your own assets and commandeering your credit due from those assets and trading upon your credit. This whole system is upgefucked in the worst possible manner, and the people have suffered harm continuously. People don't realize this, but the Federal Reserve did not just spring into existence in 1913. The Federal Reserve has a history going back many, 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 many decades before then. The Federal Reserve was fully operational in 1865 when the hostilities in the Civil War ended, and they were also parties to all the skullduggery that went on in 1868 when the corporate entity known as the United States of America Incorporated began operating. And so in that entire time frame from 1865 onward, people suffered the carpetbagger carts, the military district system. All that got set up in that time period immediately after the Civil War. And it was all bogus.
Yeah.
It was all fraud. It was all, uh, you know, based on commercial enslavement and peonage. And the military was also commandeered and reduced to the status of a mercenary force. And so, everything was commandeered at that point by Britain. And, they're responsible because they were under contract to serve us in good faith. And their answer to that was to try to fraudulently and unlawfully convert our political status so that they didn't have any Americans to be accountable to. So they've been rotten no good necks from day one. And now all of this has come back to haunt both the British House, both the British governments, and I'm saying both, being Westminster is a government, and Ghent is a government, and the monarchy is a government, and at any given time you're dealing with two of the three. So the governments of Britain are at fault for this, and their collaborators in the Roman municipal system are also guilty of this. And we, meanwhile, have been the slumbering sovereigns. And basically the foxes have been left in charge of the hen house, and the foxes have been doing what foxes do. But at the end of the day, the hen house, the chicken, and the foxes all are under service contract to who? Us. And so they're scrambling around. They're trying to find ways to derail us. They're trying to find percentage points where they can, redefine, relabel, shuffle things around, pull off these little sleight of hand deals. I'm sure that Niti is seeing it in North Carolina. I'm sure that there are lots of people who are all excited about getting $5,000 back from the IRS. Well, guess what? Or the Social Security Administration. That's called a pittance payment.
Yeah.
And pittance payment is where they pay you a penny or less per dollar to what they owe you, and then claim that the debt is settled.
Settles a debt, yeah.
We're not going to go for that or allow that to happen. We've already objected to that. There's just a vast amount of cleanup to be done in terms of getting all of this straightened out. We recently made the suggestion that instead of concentrating wholeheartedly on all of the departments and agencies of the United States corporation, that they should open up and start auditing the foreign franchises of the United States corporation, like France in all capital letters, and Germany in all capital letters, and Canada in all capital letters. So to give them something else to think about besides starting a nuclear war. You know, we have a tremendous amount of power, a tremendous amount of control. Mr. Macron over there, grandstanding and offering to use French nukes against the Russians. Well, guess what? Those French nukes are actually American nukes that were given to France with the codicil that they could only be used for defense of France. And nothing that Russia has done is even questionable in terms of international or global law. They invaded the Crimea and the Donbass region, which were a separate country called something like the Republic of Crimea, that defaulted. Its entire government stood up and walked out one day, which left them without a government. And after a period of time, they did not reorganize. Instead, they had a public referendum and voted to join the Russian government. They voted to be part of Russia. And they had every right to do so. And there were already treaty agreements in place guaranteeing that if this happened in any of the former Soviet bloc countries, if the former Soviet bloc countries or territories should lack a government, then Russia has every right to move in and provide a government. So that was all part of the whole breakup of the Russian Federation, the Soviet system. And so Russia did nothing wrong. It was Ukraine that attacked Russia because Ukraine wanted to claim the Crimea. Yeah. And they didn't have any lawful or legal claim to the Crimea. Yeah. So anyway, we've been given a completely wrong version of that. Now, as to the complaint that you can't get your FRNs back out of the vault, they're worthless. Why would you want to get them back out of the vault? Because what they represent is the debt of a bankrupt corporation. Hello? Now, their debt is our credit. There's no doubt about that, okay? However, in order to get the credit out of it that you're owed would be impossible at the current rates of what the value of the FRN actually is. Why? Because the FRN has been steadily devalued over a time period of 112 years, so that its actual value is something like 1/4 of 1 cent. Yeah. Okay? That's how far it's been devalued. It's worthless. It's not even a credible amount. Okay? So you put this piece of paper into the vault and you wait until it's outlawed. It's going to be taken out of circulation. Okay, the Federal Reserve note is going to go out of circulation. It will have to be replaced by a completely new currency,
which you have established, a real one. And the other part of that, Anna, is that, going back to, you can't talk about these things like they're real. So, I'm on the line with my merchant for 3 hours yesterday, I'm like, listen, it is your fiduciary responsibility to release these funds. And it is not my job to make sure that all of you 3 guys are in compliance or not in compliance or whatever your problem is. And you can't just hold those funds. You either give them back to the person who tried to spend them, or you give them and release them to me where they're trying to spend them. But you don't get to just hold them. And this is fraud on its face. I said, what you're doing is corrupt, and I am going to report you if you don't handle this.
Here are the magic words, Niti. It's obstruction of trade in contravention of Title 15 of the Federal Code.
Thank you for putting that on the recording because I will be replaying it. And I will be 100% putting it in my notice to them. And I've already looked up the state and I already have all that stuff ready. Thank you very much.
Cool. The new system,
Mm-hmm.
I prefer to talk about the new system because it's right and it's going to be so good. Now the vault, you take 1,000 FRNs, you put them in the vault. They're worthless. Understand that. They are literally worthless. If somebody steals that 1,000 FRNs from you, they can't be charged with theft. They are that worthless. Okay? Get this in your head. All right? Now, you take those 1,000 FRNs, you put them in the vault, and what happens? Well, out of the generosity and foresight of the Global Family Group and your federation of states, you get to get an immediate and certain recoupment. And that recoupment is 1,000 AFD. And an AFD is 1/10 of an ounce of gold. So instead of having a piece of paper that's worthless, you now have 1,000 AFD, basically 100 ounces of gold.
100 ounces of gold
on your account. And when this system goes live and you're able to trade AFD, which is an asset-backed currency, guess what? You recoup all of that in value. And you can trade it for FRNs if you want, or you can trade for their new United States notes if you want, or you can decide, well, what use do I have for fiat credit notes, which are promissory notes to pay in the future? I don't need that kind of credit because guess what? I've got prepaid credit that I'm already owed from that system so that I can use my prepaid credit, just like a gift card, right? I can use my prepaid credit to buy anything I want in the fiat system. Okay, you Americans are sitting pretty. Anybody who can claim to be an American, anybody who can claim to be on the land and soil of their particular country, period, is sitting pretty because you're already owed so much money that you have paid for with actual goods and services when you accepted those fiat currency notes. You see what happens? Joe comes in the door and he presents you with an IOU. Who is on the hook for that? Oh, the Federal Reserve banks are on the hook for that IOU. Okay, so you accept an IOU from the Federal Reserve banks and you give Joe a hamburger. You gave Joe something of actual factual substance and value. You are trading your service preparing the hamburger and you're giving him the hamburger itself. Okay, so you are trading goods and services in exchange for an IOU. All right? So you've already prepaid with goods and services the amount equal to the hamburger that you gave Joe as an IOU on his IOU. So that's where the prepaid credit comes from. Now, if you really want to have your mind exploded, think about what happens when you present that IOU to your vendors. Well, then the same thing happens. They produce goods and services in exchange for that same $10 bill. And this goes around and around and around and around until that $10 bill is so old and raggedy that the bank sees it and says, oh, this thing is beyond its service life, and throws it in an incinerator. Anybody want to guess how many times a dollar bill or a $10 bill or a $100 bill can persist and be in circulation? It's a lot.
Yeah.
It is a lot of exchanges that one bill can go through. And each time it's garnering goods and services
For nothing.
equal to the value printed on it. Okay? So that's why you have a huge store of prepaid credit to spend. That's why the prepaid credit that's already owed can completely replace the debt-based system that we have, and can do so immediately. We don't need to use debt anymore. We have prepaid credit. And it's just like a prepaid gift card. That's why it's called the gift system. Your ancestors and you have already prepaid all of this credit that's owed back to you. And so the job of the banks is going to be to keep track of the prepaid credit being returned into the system. And we Americans do not have to suffer any kind of crash, and nobody else has to suffer any kind of crash, because we've all been living under this corporatist fiat system, and we have all been owed for goods and services produced. So, our answer to the problem is the correct answer. It's in fact the only factual and actual answer there is, and that is to return the credit as prepaid credit, which puts us totally in the clear, with our hands all washed and perfectly clean in all commercial dealings. Because why? Because we already paid for it in goods and services.
Yep.
Yeah. This is going to be so good. It's going to be so good. I mean, it's, I know there's a lot of new people here, and I'm going to encourage everyone, because there's a lot of really new people here, to please start at the first episode and work your way forward, because you need to know how we were unlawfully and illegally thrown into the water and air jurisdictions and proclaimed to be dead, unconscionably, while we were babes in a cradle. So you got to start at the beginning. Anna, a lot of folks want to just, have the solution and not know anything about how it happened. And we discussed this on Saturdays, and I'm like, listen, if you don't know how you arrived, then you don't know how to stand up.
Well, it's a bizarre process that we put ourselves through, if you really think about it. When we come out of the womb, God did not tattoo a name on our forehead. We have no name.
Right.
I am who I am.
Right? We have no name.
Right.
So we arrive here without a name, and our parents gift us with one that we can use the same way that you'd use a bicycle or a chest of drawers. Okay? There's really no difference between a name and any other kind of tool or possession. A name in law is called a utility. It's something that you use, but it is not you. Okay? It's a utility. It's a means for you to operate and to identify yourself or your possessions in a society of other people. Okay? But you have to keep it very firmly in mind that it is not you. And this is especially important when you are dealing with this particular fraud scheme. Okay, so when you arrive and you're a little baby newborn and your parents are cooing over you And you know, you know. Oh, here's little James Ernest Breckenridge. Okay, they give you a name. They could theoretically give you any name. They could just make something up out of the thin air. And some parents have done that.
Yeah.
I believe Frank Zappa called his daughter Moondoggie, and that was it. Okay. Um, so, you know, it's arbitrary what name you're given. You could be given a name like XRLP Xena, spelled with an S, with no relationship to any known surname or any known name. It's totally a arbitrary decision that your parents made. Um, and then this gets attached to you by use. And after 7 years, it becomes a trademark. Okay? It's your trademark. Now you're engaged in trade, at which point they can claim that, oh, well, we don't have an entry in trade, so there's no record or registration of this trademark, so it's up for grabs. And so along comes the British Crown Corporation, and it says, oh, that's ours, but we don't know where it is. We're going to declare it legally dead. And when they do, guess what they do? They take your lawful person, they assign it to a British seaman, specifically a British warrant officer in the Merchant Marine Service, who is designated as a taxpayer. And the taxpayer's duty is to collect tariffs and taxes for the king. So you are a missing British territorial taxpayer. And when you are declared legally dead, lost at sea, it creates what? A British Seamen's Trust, which is intestate. You didn't know any of this was going on, so you certainly didn't leave a will, did you? Okay. You can't make this stuff up. Even if you tried to, you couldn't imagine it. And all these lies and all these illegal latching onto your name and all of this human trafficking of your lawful person to a legal person and then into another legal person estate, all of it intestate, by the way, so that the lawyers get to define everything and to manipulate everything.
Because you're dead.
Yeah.
Okay, first
And
they
lost.
create, right, they create an infant decedent estate, an American infant decedent estate. And it sounds like you're dead, but decedent can also mean that you just waived your estate and decided to adopt a different estate. Okay, so they create this infant decedent estate based on the idea that your mother waived your American birthright estate for you by claiming that you were a United States citizen when you're not. You're an American state national. Okay? Anyway, so they do this little witchy woo thing, create a British seaman's estate for you, and then 7 years later they declare that British seaman lost. Okay, what does that do? Well, that creates an intestate British seaman's estate under Admiralty law. What happens then? Oh, well, then the Pope's operation gets involved and says, wait a minute, that was a dual citizen. That was a dual federal citizen. And so we're going to create an estate also for the missing British seaman. And that's going to be a Sestuit Kivi trust that will be held for him. Okay. So they're sitting there with their claim in on your assets too. You see how all of this is spooling up? So now there are now 3 estates. There's an American infant descendant estate created by your mother's unknowing and undisclosed waiver of your American estate. There's the British territorial seaman's estate under Admiralty law, which was created as a result of her unknowing uh, waiver of your American estate. And now there is the British territorial state, which has been declared legally dead, absent whereabouts unknown. And then there is the municipal estate, which is created as a Sestakey estate. Well, what's a Sestakey or Sestakey estate? That's what happens when there's a disaster of some kind, like a war or a volcano or whatever. And
or a kidnapping.
And there's a missing person. Okay, there's a missing person who disappeared. We don't know where they went. And so they set up this this form of estate trust. Of course, all of these estates are intestate because you never made a will, did you? And as a baby in a cradle, you couldn't make a will. Isn't that convenient? But the Sestakey Trust over here in the municipal government side has just been, the municipal government went bankrupt. And as a result, this now creates a foreign sovereign estate trust that is kicked back to its source, which was the British territorial seaman's estate, right? They're the receiver. So now the British territorial seaman's estate trust is holding all your assets that were claimed by the municipal government.
Because you didn't have a will, because you were, and you don't even know that you're dead or alive. And oh my God, yeah. Listen, this has really been good.
Yeah, they're moving your name and your assets all over God's creation. But now that the municipal corporation is bankrupt, everything that was it being held for that foreign person that was missing is now being moved back to the British territorial seaman's estate under Admiralty law. And at this point, we're raising our little hands and saying, that estate was created by an unconscionable contract among third parties, most of whom weren't even present at the birth.
And you just did the Admiralty, the notice that you just did, that international notice. And Anna is all over it. She's all over it, you guys. Like, this is so good. Every time. So what's happening is the living law part. This is what we keep talking about, Anna, and we're, folks are starting to get it. They're starting to get it. The law is alive. Why? Because men's laws are men's creation, which means that we could just keep creating. And so they just keep writing the play for this theater, because all the world is a stage. And so because all the world is a stage, we just keep writing the theatrical performance. And then the only thing that is shockingly fascinating is that they are somehow honoring or trying to honor the ancient law, which is the only reason, Anna, that you have a foothold in a little nook, and you can just keep saying, oh, no, try again. Oh, no, try again. And you're able to correct them if you're staying on top of it. And so there's been this whole discussion going on in the chat. And so, yes, when you guys are looking back at Anna's podcasts, her webinars, her whatever, then the law is alive. And so you have to pay attention to what's current with that. But the story, the history, the how did we get from there to here part is relevant. And it's important for people to know that, because you're observing these things that are happening that everyone needs to remember. So that history is important. But Anna, thank you for your time. We're gone way over an hour. We've covered so much. This is a real interesting thing we could just wrap on. Is President Trump going to restore the republic?
President Trump can't restore our republic.
Right.
And we shouldn't let him get away with calling it the republic, because there's one American republic, and it's American. It cannot be restored by British territorial U.S. capital C citizens. All that they can do is create a different kind of federal republic in their jurisdiction and under their control, which is not of any benefit to us. It's just another cuckoo bird's nest type situation where the cuckoo bird comes in and sits on our nest and pretends to be us, and they're not. And so we have to stick to our guns. We understand the kind of problem that President Trump is fighting with, but all he has to do is stop fighting.
How about tell the truth, Anna?
Yeah, just tell the truth, unvarnish it, and bring it forward, and agree to live within the limitations of the Constitution that they do have, and live with the people as the true sovereigns that the people of this country are. We are not British subjects. We're not British territorial subjects. We're not now, and we never have been. And we've never been incompetent. We've never been dormant. We've never been, all these different things that have been alleged about us. We're not in interregnum. We have our 50 state assemblies up in session and functioning, and have had for 5 years in front of everybody, including God. We have our international government active and on the world stage since 1998. I don't see how there's any possible way that anybody can deny our right to run our country and to do it the way we're doing it, lawfully, peacefully, with a full historical accounting, with provenance, with declarations, with our own sovereign letters patent updated, with everything in every jurisdiction nailed down. We got busy and did all of this prior to the municipal government bankruptcy. We did all of this prior to the British territorial Chapter 11 bankruptcy. We did all of this prior to all of the current chaos and reshuffling and auditing and all of the attempt to settle one bankruptcy and to roll everything over into the British territorial government's hands. We have our claims established, and indeed, we issued our final civil judgment in 2014. Okay? So it was all over but the shouting in 2014. And everybody associated with this needs to know that it was over. It was done. The due process had been served. The actual footwork, the notification, the worldwide publication of our book. You know something is wrong when an American affidavit of probable cause was issued when we were standing at sea and in the jurisdiction of Admiralty and Maritime. And we were able at that point to identify the crime that had been committed against Jim and I specifically. And to fully describe it in over 100 points.
Right.
We published that worldwide.
And that answers this question, because we're not bumping heads with anybody. You're telling them he works for us, and he doesn't seem to know that. And he doesn't want to recognize Anna because he's behaving on behalf of a criminal enterprise. So that's a different problem.
President Trump is working for the British government. He's working as a British territorial officer of the USA Incorporated. Okay? And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that it is limited by the Constitution that creates it. Okay? And our state citizens hold the other end of that contract. And so in international jurisdiction, we are the government of the states of the Union. And they don't have any right to use or abuse our delegated powers or extend powers beyond their delegated powers. Okay? And they certainly don't own us as franchises. They don't have any right to copyright our names. They do not have any right to impersonate us. Okay? People talk about human rights and they talk about human trafficking. Well, guess what? We're not humans. We're men. We're women. We are not humans. A human is a color of man, a thing which is presenting as a man that isn't a man. Okay? It's a lawful person, it's a legal person, but it is not a man. Okay? And so when they're talking about human rights, they're talking about the rights accorded to corporate personnel, officers of corporations, uh, presidents of corporations, um, uh, and corporations themselves. And when they're talking about human trafficking, we all think that that means us, that, they're talking about taking a white slave victim from Daytona Beach, Florida to Morocco. No, no, uh, that is not a proper interpretation of the word human. Human means monster or phantom or incorporation.
Mm.
Okay?
Yeah.
So when they're talking about human rights, they're talking about the rights that are assigned to these people that have been denigrated into a state of indentured servitude or slavery. They're not talking about us. They're not talking about the substantive us. Okay? They're talking about a uh,
On paper, airy fairy, made up, not real.
right.
Straw man. This is the straw man. So
Okay.
we're the straw man is that guy, not us.
Right. There's me here this morning wearing the puffer coat because our furnace went out, right? And then there's a picture of me, right?
Right.
The picture isn't real. The picture is just reflecting me, okay? I'm here in Big Lake, Alaska. The picture's out there in cyberspace being projected, all right? There's a difference. And so there's a picture of a cat and there's a cat. There's a photo, there's a painting, and there's a cat, all right? And it's the same way with all these persons. I mean, think about it this way. There's a little American baby that's a baby, living, breathing baby. And then there's a lawful person that is the name of that baby that is represented with a photo or a footprint, right? There's a lawful person there because he has a name, all right? Then they take that lawful person and they make it into a painting. Okay? It's another representation of what? The living baby. And then they take that painting and they make a black and white charcoal drawing. And it's another person, another representation of the same baby. But there's only one baby. And that baby is a living, breathing individual member of what? Mankind. All right? It isn't until you start making photos and paintings and drawings that you start creating these persons, right? That are human. They are colors of man. They are representations of man. Okay, you can take anything. You can take a cat. Okay, here's the cat. This is the living cat. Okay, you create a painting of the cat. Okay, looks a lot like that cat, right? Down to the whiskers. Ah, and now you take a photo of the cat. looks even more like the cat, but it's still just a photo of the cat. And now you make a drawing of the cat. It's still just a representation, a person of what? The cat.
Cat.
You are the cat. You're the real deal. You're the man of substance, right? We hear this phrase from the 19th century, a man of substance.
Mhm.
And we think, oh, that means he's rich. No, that means literally he is a man of substance. He is physical. He is not a person. He's not adopting some person in which to operate and be. Okay. What happens when you're inducted into the military? Greg, are you a veteran by any chance?
I am not. I am not.
Okay. Okay, well, what happens when you're inducted into the military? You become a person. You become personnel.
Yeah.
That's why corporations have personnel departments.
Human resources.
Because you're operating as a human in a color of man, as a person. Okay? You're operating as a painting, a photo, or a charcoal drawing of yourself, right?
Oh.
And when you are operating in the military, you do what? You sign up for a tour of duty. And that tour of duty may be in any one of several different services, and it can be of any different duration. It could be a 2-year hitch, a 3-year hitch, however many different varieties of time duration contracts they offer. Okay, so you sign up for a tour of duty, which begins on this date and ends on that date, right?
Mhm.
That is indentured servitude. That is a peonage contract, and it's unlawful in the United States, but it's not unlawful in the British territories, such as Puerto Rico, which is a what? A British Commonwealth.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. So
That they use to money launder.
Yeah, right. Well, and I have sympathy for the Puerto Ricans because they were just abused terribly by these corporations. These
Over and over and over, and then when they were trying to get a little bit too big for their britches, they hit them with a hurricane, and then they hit them again. That's what they do. They protected them from the hurricanes, the fake ones, for the longest time, and then all of a sudden, hurricane season got them.
Yep.
Yeah, this kind of thing. It's the corporations run rampant.
Yes.
And they but anyway, when you sign up in the military, you're actually signing up for a contract of indentured servitude and peonage. And during that time, you have no constitutional rights at all, and you have no access to American common law because you're under what? You're under the universal
General issue.
military justice.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're under a whole different set of laws, a whole different set of presumptions. You're being paid dirt cheap wages because you are an indentured servant and you are learning a trade. This is the guild system.
How to be a mercenary under their system.
Right. And so now you're signed up to act as a mercenary under the auspices of a foreign law and under the control of a foreign government. As long as you're operating as a capital U dot, capital S dot, capital C citizen, you are obligated as a British citizen to pay British taxes, to place all of your land into a trust under the administration of the British king or queen. You've got a whole ration of things that accrue to you that you're never told a word about when you actually sign up. Because when you sign up, you're agreeing to act as that person. You are agreeing to act as a British territorial capital U dot, capital S dot, capital C citizen. You have adopted that person, that mask, that guise, that color of man. Okay, you are agreeing to be a human. Okay, and so you are in a condition of peonage and control of a foreign entity the entire time that you are in U.S. service. Okay, just like they talk about service, the domestic staff in the British, the royal houses and the noble houses of Britain. You have the domestic staff. They call it domestic service. Well, they are indentured servants. They're being paid a specific wage for a specific time period to play a specific role and to act as personnel. They're charwomen, they are footmen, they are butlers, and it's the same exact system being applied to the military. The military is set up in ranks. You are an E6, you are a captain, you are a colonel, you are a lieutenant colonel, you are a brigadier general. These are all positions in a personnel system because you are operating as a person and specifically as an indentured servant and mercenary of the king. Okay? Our entire service has been commandeered by the Brits. And that's illegal and unlawful because they have a contract with us that allows them to be here and allows them to operate our delegated powers under contract, which also requires them to operate in good faith. And this is not. They're operating under conditions of fraud, deceit, and non-disclosure. How many Americans would sign up for military service in the U.S. government's employ if they knew that they were being used as mercenaries and very cheap mercenaries?
Very few.
Right.
Yeah.
None of our sons and daughters would do that.
And since these contracts and circumstances are not disclosed to them prior to them signing these, tours of duty, then how valid are those contracts? I say that they're all invalid. They're invalid
Exactly.
disclosure.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's the indentured servitude part of it. But what about this other person over here? The charcoal drawing of the cat. Okay. What about this person? Well, this person over here is a slave. He's a slave to Christ. He's a slave to the Pope. It's not just Christ, it's a Catholic Christ, okay? So over here with this particular person, the picture of the cat, that's a drawing, right? You've got another whole set of circumstances. This person has been obligated to pay all debts, regardless of what the debt is. This person is obligated to pay it, and he has no choice. He's already a sinner. He's already guilty. He is already condemned, right? This person, this slave to Christ, has already been condemned. And the only thing that can redeem this slave to Christ is intercession by the Pope and, the forgiveness of Jesus. All right, so this is the 14th Amendment citizenship that is conferred on everybody unless you object and extradite yourself out of that using the expatriation statute. This is the straw man. And it's not just the straw man that is attached to your name as you have it on the original birth certificate of the British sailor, but it's also all of the derivatives.
Yeah.
So you not only have a name like Anna Maria Reisinger, you've got Anna M. Reisinger. You've got Anna M. with just an M, Reisinger with no dot to make it an initial. You've got Reisinger Anna M. You've got Reisinger Anna Maria. You've got all of the different permutations, orderings, drop the middle initial, add the middle initial, all these different derivatives over here in the slave column that are different things, different corporate entities. The Department of Transportation in the municipal government created an entity called Anna M. Reisinger with just an M, no dot. No, the M is just out there in hyperspace. It looks like an initial. It looks like it might be an initial, but we don't know, right? Okay. The Department of Transportation in the municipal government creates this entity called Anna M. Reisinger, and that is defined as, guess what? A special purpose vehicle that is, a special purpose vehicle that is subject to the motor vehicle code.
Yep.
Wow. The theater just never stops.
Yeah.
Well, and the fraud and the abuse and the lies and the misrepresentation from people that owe us good faith service never stops. And that's what's really, really, once you get into this stuff and you realize what they've done, the immensity of the fraud is breathtaking.
Yeah.
And the amount of money that they have embezzled, the amount of goods and services that they have embezzled and benefited from without paying a damn dime, without any reciprocal trade at all. Nothing, and it's in all of it's incredibly inequitable.
Mm-hmm.
And they've gotten away with it. They've gotten away with it for decades, generations. People have labored under this system and not even realized that it was a system and what was being alleged and what was being done based on these phony claims. And now people are waking up. They're paying attention. They're realizing that they've been basically defrauded by people that are operating what's supposed to be their government subcontractors.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Wow.
So, Social Security checks, the military federal pay, their retirement checks and all this other stuff. As we move forward, friends, we're not sure what anybody's going to be really doing. Like how, we know they owe it to you. A lot of folks don't want to declare, Anna, because they're afraid they're going to lose something by doing that. Actually, friends, this is your backup plan. So, if it's owed to you, they owe it to you. If you declare and they collapse, which it looks like that's happening, then you have a backup plan. A lot of people think, Anna, they're like, what are we going to do? Are we going to take those payments and we're going to convert them to the AFDs? No, you're just not going to care about that because it's probably going to stop. If it still comes, then you take it. And if it doesn't, then we just move on. Isn't that how it goes, Anna?
Well, look, this collapse is going to be a lot more of a collapse than people are anticipating.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because the municipal government is going to collapse and only a small portion of it will be retained as completely, only the most essential civil service functions will be retained because that's all that the receiver can afford. Now the receiver thinks that they're going to get our assets and they're going to be able to dig themselves out using our assets. But instead, the Siemens estates in Admiralty are going to be challenged and rolled and overcome. And then it goes back to the American infant decedent estate. And those infant decedent estates are going to be dissolved because they were never created lawfully or legally. They were unconscionable contracts that were imposed on babies, for God's sake.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of those are going to be dissolved. And you're going to be left with the adults standing on the land and soil of their states of the Union, getting back all of their assets. And we have already built a new monetary system and a new banking system. I'm going to have to go, guys. I have to take this call.
Yeah. Well, thank you. We have to go too, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. And we will see you next Tuesday.
Take care.
Bye, everybody.